HTO Football listeners. I am this week flying solo. Co-host Andrew is not available, but I'm in good hands because I'm with two other people here today. We're here with 72 Films, John Douglas and Claire Cameron. How are you both?
Very well,
really well, thank you. Thanks for having us on.
For those not aware, although obviously we'll be pushing hard around the build-up to this, 72 Films, John and Claire, they helped produce the phenomenal All or Nothing series for Tottenham Hotspur this year. Just first initial reaction from you both. How have you felt the reaction from the wider fan base? And don't worry about critical reaction. Sod them. Sod the critics. Actually, what about the football fans you've engaged with since? Because that's what it's for. That's who it's for, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think critically it's sort of been all right as well, actually.
Well, it has. It has. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not who you want it to be saying great things, is it?
Yeah, it is, and actually, I think for us, I think it's been really, really well received by football fans, and I think we weren't sure when we started kind of exactly who was going to watch it. It'd be clear that we imagined Spurs fans would watch it, but then sometimes Spurs fans were saying they didn't want to watch it because of the sort of some of the things that happened in the season. But I think overall, as a sort of football series, I think the fans have really responded to it, and liked how sort of intimate a look it gives you at the sort of workings of a football club. That's been sort of my big, what I've noticed.
Yeah. I think we've had, I've had loads of texts from football fans of different. What's kind of blown me away is I just thought Spurs fans would watch it. And obviously when we made it, we wanted it to appeal to everybody, even non-football fans. The amount of football fans of different teams who have liked it has been amazing.
Yeah, no, for my money, listeners well know that I'm an Arsenal fan and Arsenal season ticket holder, but both with the Sunderland Till I Die, the Man City programme last year, as well as this one, it is fascinating. Ultimately we are football fans at heart, and actually to see the inner workings of a Premier League club, is going to be interesting, going to be fascinating. How did you both, but 72 Films, how did they get involved with the project?
Well, we were approached by Amazon, and obviously All or Nothing is a brand that obviously there was, as you mentioned, there was the Man City series a couple of years back, and they've done quite a few series in the NFL and in other places, and they approached us and asked if we'd be keen on making a series. They told us the club, they told us it was going to be Spurs, and we just jumped at the chance for a number of reasons. I think we're football fans, and also there's a sense that this is something that just doesn't come along very often. You don't see the inner workings of a football club very often, and I think the experience we've got in sort of documentary and filming inside sort of institutions and organisations, particularly with sort of fixed rig cameras, I think we felt we could bring quite a lot to it in a way that perhaps hadn't been done before. So I think we were really excited when Amazon approached us.
Yeah, I mean, that was what excited me about it, because John and I both, as he says, worked on series like 24 Hours in A&E and Educating, so where we use these fixed rig remotely operated cameras, which mean you don't have to have a person in the room. So you were kind of already talking about that before you approached me. So I was just, the idea of putting these cameras in a space where you've never kind of been before, put them before, was really exciting.
I think that really shows as well. There's so many moments throughout the series where they're obviously candid conversations, but actually you're catching people just being very normal. And that's what I really liked from the series as well. It wasn't just the showpiece arguments or the big matches or the moments on the training pitch that you'd imagine would make, in inverted commas, good telly. It's actually just some conversations at the dinner table, like, what do you think Mourinho's tactics is going to be like? Do you think he's going to be like a hard taskmaster, or I think he's going to be really detailed in tactics? And actually, that this is literally just sort of chit chat, and it's quite inane chit chat in many respects. But it's what you do is whatever line of work you're in, and I'm in a far more boring in a suit world kind of world where I come from, professional services, you'd have those same conversations about your new boss coming along or whatever it may be. And I think that's why it really worked for me personally anyway. And were you a little bit gutted that you didn't do it the season before on their run to the Champions League final?
It's funny, you know what, when we started, everybody was saying, you should have done last season, you should have been here last season, it was great. And then at the end of our season, we were kind of like, we we got the right season in the end, didn't we? But I mean, it would have been amazing. You know, obviously, there's got to be it just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? Football, and things change so quickly. So I think it would have been great to do the Champions League final last year, but I think equally we got a season where kind of a lot more story happened, if you like.
Yeah, it would have been one positive show, really, wouldn't it? As the season before, it was a very good season for Spurs, and unfortunately, for Tottenham fans, unfortunately didn't win the Champions League, but nonetheless, that's still just one positive arc. Whereas I think there were a few more ups and downs in the season as it came through.
Just so much more, I think, happened last season. It's not always necessarily in terms of it being kind of a positive or negative. No. Negative, for us, it's just about what you're able to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the biggest surprise for you during the series, during the season? Was there anything that what would be really, really nice is if you could cover that question from thematically from making the actual program that you didn't anticipate, but also actually just as a football fan, just getting in there, getting behind the scenes of such a big club. Did anything shock you from the way that the football club is actually run?
Not in the way the club was run. I think for me, that we all read, and as a football fan, I sort of read in the newspapers, about fixture congestion and players having to work hard, and you read in the papers they say, well, they get paid all this money, and they're asked to go and play football. But when you see it from the inside, the schedule that they have is relentless. They play such a huge amount of football, and they've got to switch from competition to competition, match to match, and just kind of keeping the first team kind of fit and ready for their sort of run of matches, particularly during that sort of winter period. I mean, we were filming it, and we were at every away game and filmed all the home games and all the competitions. And it was exhausting for us. We had quite a big team, but it was exhausting, covering all that. But then you just think, players, they might have 2 or 3 days between matches sometimes, and they're on planes to Europe or up and down the country. And I have to say, I was in real awe of just sort of watching how the club, just from a logistical point of view, organises and gets the team and everything they need to matches. And for the players themselves, just to play that amount of games is it's quite staggering, really. I think that was like one of the biggest surprises for me.
Yeah, how crazy the schedule is, absolutely bonkers, isn't it? And just how hard they work. And as John says, like the team around the team as well. For me, I guess the biggest thing that surprised me was just how normal the players were as people. Like, I never met a Premier League football player before, and they come with a reputation, don't they? And a really sort of classic stereotype that was really, really quickly undermined for me when you started chatting to people and just realised how kind of that ego that you sort of expect to be there because of what you read about people and because of what people are paid. Yeah, it's just not there. And it's just a kind of a really kind of interesting life, because these guys have started in this world when they're maybe 6, 7, 8. So they've been in this sort of mad world for... they haven't been to a normal school, some of them. They've been through the academy system. So I was just really surprised at kind of how well balanced people were, despite sort of living in this kind of crazy bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I think it's a point that I wanted to sort of ask you about, but sort of make as well, it kind of crosses those 2 points around, very normal people, and actually probably working a lot harder than is given credit for, because yes, the footballers' schedules may not be as intense from a training perspective, but A, like you say, Claire, they've been doing it since they were a child to make it this far. And B, what is always astounds me when I've watched any of the recent football documentaries is the hours and the shifts that the management and the board put in. Like, they're literally there at 7 in the morning, and they're not leaving till 10, 11, 12 at night. Especially, I'll always love the sort of transfer season episodes, and anything around sort of like that period of end, before ramping up to not start of a new season. They put in a serious shift, don't they? I think those days of they just turn up for an hour of training in the morning and then just start to come out on Saturday. I think it's nice to dispel some of those rumours. But there are heroes. They need to put in a bit of a shift. Otherwise, it'd be outrageous, wouldn't it? It would be outrageous. Why do you think? And we touched on this actually prior to starting the recording. But why do you think there's been such a drive in wanting these sports documentaries in the last 2 or 3 years? I think, I mentioned the Last Dance, and obviously the Balls and the Michael Jordan documentary, but you have had the Sunderland documentary and these All or Nothing series. They really just seem to be garnering such a widespread support and fascination. And why do you think that is?
Interesting question, isn't it? Because actually, sort of, we work in this world of documentaries, and sometimes there are sort of trends that happen, but I can't think of
I think that with, you look at the broadcasters and the way they broadcast sport, particularly football, but all other broadcasters. I think there is a push and a want from fans to get closer than you sort of ever have done before, and to get sort of inside and to try and understand what life's like within that sport or within the team that you sort of love. There's, they're all the clubs have all their own, football channels and things now, where you're getting all this behind the scenes material and extra stuff. And I think that is something that fans really like. And then I think, you have something like All or Nothing and with Amazon, who kind of come along and say, we want to tell the whole season, in a really truthful documentary way. That, I think, for sports fans is a bit like the Holy Grail. It's like something that you never get to see and feels very privileged. And for us as filmmakers, I think it felt an incredibly privileged place to be, because it's just not something you see. And, particularly when you like football, I think our biggest challenge, though, really was to, as Claire said earlier, try to make it appeal to non-football fans as well, because, there's a lot that goes on in the club, and a lot of it's about the personalities and the characters of the people at the club. So I think fundamentally as well, and the reason why we're in documentary, I think, is to tell people stories, and the stories of sort of interesting places. And whether it's a hospital or an army unit or a football club, I think what you're always trying to do is find the sort of human stories. So I think the fact that you can now do that in sport, I think, means that sort of sports documentaries have just all of a sudden just become just fascinating, because clubs and sporting teams and things are allowing sort of cameras in, maybe in a way they weren't sort of previously.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think there was a period, slightly showing my age, but Spurs used to train. So I think there's a little place called Chase Lodge over in Mill Hill in the early 90s, and basically, I think it's that closeness to your club or closeness to a club as well that probably has been lost in the last 20 years. As the game exploded, got so big, you can't just sort of peer through the gates and be at a training ground anymore, or just sort of meet the players on the way into the stadium. There's famous recollections after Arsenal's '89 league title win in Liverpool, and the players came back and celebrated in the local snooker club with lots of fans. That couldn't happen now. It just couldn't, because you'd have the world's media there, you'd have 50,000 people there, and it's just impossible. And I think there's been a gap where you've kind of lost access, especially to the Premier League, when you've got these superstars, and then you have a fantastic show like yours, actually almost providing fans that access again to their heroes, and actually seeing what they're like, seeing that they're very fallible, but also seeing, actually, like Claire said, they're actually nice people and actually just cracking on with their day job, by and large. How were Spurs to deal with, throughout the process? But did you ever feel that the vibe in the club was different in the way that you were treated, whether you're in a good run of form or a poor run of form through the season?
No, I don't think that. I think it takes a long time when you go into any kind of institution and you're going to be there for about a year. It takes, a few weeks, if not a couple of months, to really build that trust between you and the institution, because of course you're not going to just rock up and install sort of 25 cameras and then just sort of go, yeah, guys, we're going to hit record. While they were kind of obviously up for the project from day one, still you go in and you have to build those relationships on the ground and sort of explain to people why you were trying to cover what you want to cover. So I think, they were great to deal with, but they had ordinary kind of reservations, as anybody would, about, what you want to film and why you want to film it in the beginning. And you just, as they say, you just start building that relationship of trust.
And I think what we sort of never take for granted, and what you learn whenever you go in something, that it is a big undertaking for any organisation to say, okay, we're going to let this documentary team in, and they're going to film pretty much everything that goes on over the course of a season. That's a brave thing to do, and I think the club, as Claire said, they were really sort of supportive and behind us. And once we did get in there and start filming, they were really sort of generous with their time. Particularly not only the first team players and the manager, but the chairman, but also just the support staff. The physios and the head of recruitment. People who sort of play a huge part in the day-to-day running of the club. That really made a big difference to us. And I feel like after we gained that sort of trust, the series really sort of started coming together. But I think we never take for granted that, we never think it's an easy thing for us to go in, or for an organisation just to let us in.
Absolutely. And that's what makes the magic of the shows, is those probably the people less used to having a camera in their face, really, actually. So, physios or kitchen staff or whoever it may be at a football club, actually turning the corner, having a camera there, and it's they may have been at the club many years, and that's not been happened to them. Whereas actually for a footballer, it's probably more often they get it in the bushes outside their own home, let alone at the training ground. So.
And also, people don't always realise kind of how interesting their job is. People do their jobs; they go to work, and and that's at every sort of level of the club. People don't always sort of appreciate why we want to sort of film things. But from our point of view, there's people around the club who are fascinating and have a fascinating role to play. So I think that was another thing that we spent a lot of time doing, was just sort of understanding how the club sort of operates, so that we could tell the best story we could.
Absolutely. Do you have any favourite stories or memories, like individual personal ones that you would be able to share? We're not digging for gossip, but anything that really sticks out and you said, what, over and above the show, that was just a fun day or a fun moment that you shared with Spurs?
I don't know if this sort of...
Claire's laughing like there definitely is, and they just don't know whether to say it.
We've signed an NDA.
We never publish the videos of these recordings. It's only ever the verbal. But I'm just going to let everyone else know that there was a look that said definitely yes, but we can't share it.
No, I mean, genuinely, there are no sort of massive secrets. I think for me, like the day that we were sort of filming, and I sort of couldn't quite believe what we were filming, and the challenge was how we sort of accurately tell it, was the day that sort of Jose came to Jose's first day at the club, because that was just, it was Jose Mourinho, but it was watching someone turn up on their first day in a new job, and it was such a sort of human moment, where you had the other players and you had people in the club reacting to it, and you had him. He was in his office, an empty office, unpacking his boxes, and I think as we were filming that, you sort of had to pinch yourself a little bit and kind of think, oh, this feels a sort of amazing moment. But I think the importance for us was like, we've got to make sure we make this feel like this is someone starting their first day in a new big job. So from my point of view, that was a moment that I sort of probably won't forget.
Yeah, I won't forget that moment when we walked across the car park on Jose's first day and he was walking in front of us. We were like, it's Jose.
That really showed actually that it was, as someone growing up for many tussles with Jose Mourinho Chelsea sides, or less so Man United, but tussles with Chelsea sides in the early part of the century, therefore not loving him as a manager. Actually, that episode for me, that was really touching, almost in the vulnerability that he clearly had his first day. When in the training picture, when he's getting names slightly wrong because he's just like, what do you prefer to be called? And actually, you sometimes see people, and let's be honest, especially someone like Mourinho, who comes across brash, comes across with that level of arrogance, and I can do this. But actually, there's someone in quite a vulnerable moment, because he's the new fish in this big new pond at Tottenham Hotspur. I don't even know the names of everyone around him, and I think that was shot really well. And I think that you gave the respect to him being clearly the new man in charge and getting his tour. So for example, he gets the tour around the thing where people are lucky to get photos with him, with people in the IT department. Can he possibly take photos with Jose Mourinho? But equally, you show the flip side of that, which is obviously the vulnerability, which is really powerful. What we are going to do, and I'm going to throw some quick fire questions at you. But don't worry, they're all like very nice and very sanitized and very fine. But yeah, there you go.
Go for it.
and you can get one or two word answers depending if you can. Your favourite sports or football documentary, not including this one, clearly.
Les Yeux dans le Bleu, which was a French documentary made about the French World Cup winning team in '98, which made me think one day I want to make a documentary about a football team.
Nice.
Mine was Graham Taylor, An Impossible Job.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Taylor, love it. Okay, favourite Prime show, again, Amazon Prime show, not this one clearly, but it doesn't have to be a sports documentary. It can be any kind of film or show that you're watching on Amazon.
Oh, The Boys. I love The Boys.
Trying to think what I've been watching recently.
Or just your favourite other show at the moment.
This is really dull, but I feel like I've watched so little other bits of television in the last year. Because
true.
There is something. Can I come back? Can I answer that one in a minute?
You can do. Who was the best player at Spurs?
Oh, you can't.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can. Unless you've all got them on WhatsApp, you can definitely ask that question.
Who was the best player? Last season?
Yeah, last season.
Well, you can't say best.
We're going to sound really dull, but I don't know if they were. I mean, there were some amazing performances through the season.
Sonny's wonder goal against Burnley.
Oh, that was incredible.
Special goal, yeah.
It was incredible, yeah.
Well, I've not got in my fantasy team, and I was really dying yesterday because obviously Kane and Son yesterday. I've gone obviously big on Everton and Wolves with their fixtures, and Everton's been paying dividends. It's gone well for me. But yeah, I really missed out on Spurs assets yesterday. Potentially some Arsenal bias slipping in, but I couldn't possibly say whether that was the case. You're both football fans, so we always ask this question to every single guest we get: Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi. Good.
There's no correct answer, but that's the correct answer.
I don't know if that's true. Actually, Messi.
It's definitely true.
Is it?
It's definitely true. And do you know what? Messi's making a comeback in our episodes. You know, I think this is the 22nd or 23rd episode we've done on the podcast in the last year. And the first 12, everyone said Ronaldo. And both Andrew, the co-host, and myself were very firmly in the Messi camp. And we were starting to get a bit disgruntled. But actually, Messi's making a big comeback, and rightly so. I think Ronaldo's phenomenal, but just.
I think that's really. I think that. Yeah, I think it's very hard to.
You should have backed your own horse. Then.
Yeah, you're sitting on the fence with that. Sitting on the fence with the Prime show. God, you see, you weren't the director, John. You weren't making the fight. 72 films. They're having a party. You're allowed 4 guests to come over, dead or alive. Who are you picking?
Oh, that is really hard.
Childhood heroes, whoever they might be. Who are you bringing out? Who's coming to tea?
I don't know.
I mean, we should invite Jose just for his wonderful speeches.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Jose can come.
Yeah. Gosh.
We'll cut out the long pauses, and we'll just say, like, as if you were really firm about your answers.
Who else would you fantasy?
72 films party.
I always like Diane Morgan because I find her very funny, but she might be a bit too niche.
Right.
No, that's fine. We can Diane Morgan.
I'm really antisocial.
So you just want those two, like Jose and Diane Morgan.
Yeah, and John's not going to come to the party, folks, because
me, Jose and Diane Morgan, who will have nothing in common with each other.
Doesn't want to be there. Absolutely. We'll park that then. If you're not inviting anyone to the party, that's fine. I mean, it's been locked down. It's probably been a while since you've been to a party in person.
Yeah, party used to my own company. I think that's
absolutely. I think that's what's happened. What's next for you both? What's next for 72? What are you up to? Is there anything you can talk about? Any exciting things?
We're doing a bit more. Development work in the sort of sports area. Hoping to do more of that. And then we've got a series coming out quite soon about Donald Trump. which is on the BBC, which has been a long time in the making. And what else? Yeah, just we tend to, at the moment, and partly because of sort of lockdown and of the way we sort of people are having to make sort of documentaries, we're doing a lot of work with sort of archive. So we're trying to find some sort of interesting archive-based stories to make series on.
Fantastic. Right, before we close, you've got 30 seconds. This is not putting you on the spot again, but why should any football fan out there, if they've not seen, and I'm sure they all have seen All or Nothing Tottenham Hotspur, if they've not seen it yet, though, why should they watch it in a nutshell?
You're going to give it. You can do
that. I think if you're a football fan, and even if you're not a football fan, actually, I think what All or Nothing Tottenham Hotspur offers is a really intimate, honest look at the inner workings of a football club, and what you see are the players and the manager and the coaching staff. You sort of see why they care so much about football, and you see them as people rather than sort of celebrities and famous footballers. And I think it's very rare that you get to see that. And I think it's a really compelling watch in a really utterly unique season where things happen that no one would ever expected at the start of the season. So I think just football fans, non-football fans alike will find it fascinating.
Brilliant. That's very good.
Why did they pay the big bucks, John Douglas?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. And for the listeners, I completely echo that. They're all very familiar with Andrew and my personal Arsenal bias, but nonetheless, it's a fantastic show. There's clearly a lot of fantastic people at Tottenham Hotspur who care a lot about their club and care a lot about the area of Tottenham as well. And actually, I think that's been handled really well by both of you. So thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for the chat.
Oh,
thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having us on.
Really good.
Yeah, no, well, thank you very much. Cheers, both. Thank you very much. I will let you know when it's going to be being pushed out and stuff like that. It will probably be in the next week or two, max. Just want to get it out.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't have any party guests.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I quite like that because people are going to know what you're all about then.
I was going to say Mr. Edwards, one of my old teachers, but that would be absolutely lost on anybody. So he was just good fun.
That might work, but that's sometimes why it does work, because you'd have an old teacher, you'd have Diamond, and you'd have Jose Mourinho, who might really think you stumbled into the wrong room. But
the problem is we don't like talking about ourselves, do we? We're used to asking people the questions, and when actually it gets turned around, you're like, somebody's asked me something about myself.
Actually,
Well, one of the questions that we always ask, so I have to take it off the record and ask you now, but you were quite very secretive about your own football allegiances, so I didn't want to go there. But one question we always ask is, okay, West Ham to win the Champions League or England to win the World Cup, and similarly for Blade. So we always ask that if we know their personal club. So what I won't know. We won't include this in the cut, don't worry. But what would you go for? Are you? So for me, personally, I'd rather Arsenal win a corner than England win the World Cup. So
all day long, West Ham for the Champions League. Thing is, my family is Scottish, so I'm actually a Scotland fan before.
Oh really?
Yeah. So if ever, whenever there used to be all the old home internationals, I was always rooting for Scotland over England. So yeah, club over country for me. Unless it was Scotland, actually. If it was Scotland to win the World Cup, then all bets are off.
Real? Yeah. I mean, we're trying to root it in some sort of semblance of reality. Just like. But are you the Blades as well? Sheffield United to win the...
You know what? I think being a Blades fan, I think the chances of getting to the Champions League final are so slim. I'll go with the England version. I mean, last season I thought there was a period of time where I thought that might happen. But,
the truth, mind you, if Harry Kane could just pass the ball, that might have happened in the World Cup as well. But we won't include that on a Tottenham pod. But honestly, thank you for both so much. It's been great, and
Thanks so much.
No worries.
Well, we're in stoppage time at HTO Football. There's been a substitution of host. Tom has been replaced by myself, Andrew Timbrell, and I'm alongside a Spursy podcast host, Sava. Sava, how are things? You well? Still bouncing off the walls
good.
After Sunday?
Yeah, all good my end, mate. It's a good time to be a Spurs fan at the moment, and there's been lots of times over the years where that hasn't been the case. So yeah, good times, exciting times.
Yeah, normally United, and as a gooner myself, United and Spurs games, I want them to pan out as a boring 0-0 draw with a couple of red cards, but that wasn't the case on Sunday.
Well, listen, I can honestly tell you that being a Spurs fan, I can't remember the last time we went to Old Trafford and, God, let's say, annihilated them, which it was. So it's uncharted territory, should we say. So it was welcome.
Yeah. So we've obviously been speaking to the All or Nothing producers in this episode, and we just wanted your thoughts really as a fan. When that news was announced that the club had agreed to do a deal with Amazon, what as a fan, what was your initial reaction to that? Was it sort of head in hand, oh, this is going to leave us open to banter and stick, or was it a chance to see things up close and personal that really we don't get to see anymore?
I think it was a mixture of both, really. I mean, I suppose the disappointing thing from my point of view as a Spurs fan was that it happened the year after we'd made the Champions League final. So in the back of my mind, it was always, well, how are they hoping that gets topped? You know, you've seen this before. Clubs have an amazing run in whether it be like Leicester winning the league, you know, Spurs getting to a Champions League final, and the year after is always a bit more of an anticlimax. And that was my worry. It turns out that they actually got their excitement in one way or another. It was the most up and down, turbulent season for a long, long time. Different managers, you know, players not signing contracts, results, some were brilliant. Yeah, new stadium. It was all happening. So, in a way, I suppose they were going to get some box office, whatever happened. But I'm sure they weren't thinking that Poch was going to be sacked a couple of months into their documentary. So, so it's interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned Poch, obviously, the season before. What an amazing run to get to the Champions League final. Sort of a strange ending to Poch's career at Spurs, really. We had a question in from one of our sort of followers from Twitter, our friends at Man Marking Podcast, and they wanted to ask you, does Sava think any part of Levy's decision to sack Poch and hire Jose was influenced by the filming?
Well, yeah, I mean, it could have been. Look, I'm more from the point of view that I do feel that it was time for Poch to go. As much as we can say, you know, the Champions League final was absolutely epic. You know, we've not experienced anything like that before as Tottenham fans. It did paper over a lot of cracks. And we've seen before, Daniel Levy is ruthless. And, you know, the results from January 2019 through to November 2019 when he was sacked weren't good. And if it wasn't for that cup run in the Champions League, I feel his tenure would have ended sooner. However, there, you know, Spurs fans do talk about this. There are murmurings that, well, hang on, maybe they started filming and Poch isn't the lavish, outgoing character that Jose Mourinho is. Was he boring for TV? I like to think it's not that. I like to think it was the results, and it is a results-driven business. So I hope that he wasn't sacked for that entertainment value, and I hope it was results.
Yeah, there are stories, aren't there, that lots of other clubs have been approached by sort of production companies like Amazon and have turned it down. I think Liverpool a year or two ago, Klopp wasn't really that keen. What do you think? Is it a positive thing for football clubs? Do you think this is the way that things are going to go? I remember when I was growing up, I'd always buy the end of season DVD review. And normally, as an Arsenal fan, that would end with some sort of trophy, but not so much these days. But is this just the new form of that? Do you think?
I mean, look, the day and age we're in, there's money to be made out of absolutely everything, isn't there? You know, you can't turn on Netflix or Amazon Prime without finding a documentary about Postman, or there was one on the other day about Rubik's cubes. You know, it's just they'll make money from what they can. I think what was interesting about this documentary for me was the four I'd seen before were the QPR one about maybe 7 or 8 years ago. They had one called The 5-Year Plan, which was a really, really good watch, filmed over a few seasons. And the aim was, right, we're tinkering on getting into the Premier League. Can we do it? So there was that angle. Then there was Sunderland, and theirs was more about, God, hang on, we're a massive club, we've gone down, and we're going down again, so they had that angle there. Leeds, again, it was very much trying to get promoted. With Spurs, I'm not sure what it was. I don't know what the angle was going to be. I understand maybe why Liverpool wouldn't want it, because they were on the brink of something fantastic, and that has proven right over the last 2 seasons. Maybe Klopp didn't want the distractions, and it certainly looks like it's worked, because I think they've lost something like 2 games in 2 seasons. So, look, I suppose, it depends what you want it for, but in a way, I think, I'm sure we'll come on to this a bit later, but for me, the winner in all of this for the Spurs one is Jose Mourinho. I'll leave that there in case you want to push on to that a bit later, but I think he is the big winner in our documentary, whereas in other documentaries, I can't think of one winner other than the club.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. We'll go straight in, I guess, because we had a tweet from one of our followers, Dan. He said, "Which episode of the series did Sava realise how blessed we are to have Jose at the club?"
Do you know what? Look, I'm a big Jose Mourinho supporter. I don't believe that you have that amount of success on your CV by luck. Everybody can win 1 or 2 things by picking up the right team at the right time, or the right players at the right time. To have 25 trophies in your cabinet there's some skill there. There's something about the man. So I was always after him to come in when Poch was dismissed. However, if I was a doubter, I would have said straight from episode 1, just seeing how he interacted with the players, just seeing what he demanded from the players. There wasn't a lot of, we are going to play this way or we're not going to play that way. It was very much about, look, you are good players, but you need to change your mindset and your mentality to become winners. Now, don't get me wrong, a little bit of that you're thinking, well, some of them he knows aren't good enough, but he still managed to get the best out of some very ordinary players that hadn't been performing for a year. So for me, I think right from episode 1, lots of Spurs fans were definitely on platforms like Twitter saying, oh my God, I've changed my opinion of Jose. He's not this Chelsea legend now. He's here, he's ours, and this is why he's won everything. So I would say from episode 1.
Yeah, he's definitely doing the Premier League block now, isn't he? You've got Chelsea, United, Spurs. I mean, do you think that it's interesting to think that would Poch have attracted a Gareth Bale back to the club? Like someone like a Reguilon, for example, a very, very, very exciting left back. I mean, there was always talk, wasn't there, that Poch was never felt completely backed in the market, and maybe Jose's CV adds to the weight when in discussions or transfer targets, etc.
Yeah, listen, I think there's definitely merit to that. Look, for as well as Poch done for a period of time, there were definitely naiveties about his management. And it's normal in life. If a winner rings you up, if somebody who's been there, seen it and done it, rings you up and says, right, come and join me, come and be part of my plan, you think to yourself, well, he has done it before multiple times. So he does know what he's doing and he knows how to get over the line. So from that point of view, I can see that, Sergio Reguilon, a Gareth Bale might look at that and go, yeah, do you know what? I do want to be a part of that. However, a lot of that is also the difference in their management style. Lots of Poch's signings, and I believe it was at last count, 28 signings he made as Spurs manager. Lots of them were very young. It was lots of young players coming through that all had potential. And that's been the buzzword at Spurs for about a decade now. Everyone's got potential, and in 5 years, we're going to be the best team in the world because they're all going to become world beaters and they're all going to stay together. Whereas Mourinho now, if you look at the signings that he's brought in, even players like Joe Hart, who aren't going to play a lot, he's a winner. The mentality's there. He's a good voice to have. That's what he's bringing to Tottenham Hotspur. So I do feel there's a huge shift in sorry, my pug's decided to try and get involved. I do feel there's a huge shift in terms of what we're looking for under Mourinho to Poch. Also, you could look at it the other way as well, Andrew, that, is it Jose going into Levy and saying, look, you've hired me, you have to trust me, I know what I'm doing. As opposed to maybe there was always that little bit of doubt with Poch as to, okay, he's a good coach, but can he get us over that line? And unfortunately, it looked like he couldn't, and he didn't.
That was sort of evident, wasn't it, in the episode where there's the viral clip that online when he sits down with Harry Kane in his office, Jose, and talks to him about leadership, and that what you're offering now. He wants to maximise that, and that was a very interesting discussion, because Harry Kane is a leader where I feel like he leads by example, the way he plays, Harry. I think that was quite evident in the episodes to come, where he's having those halftime team talks. Harry never looked completely comfortable doing that. Really, it's what did you make of, because Harry Kane's leadership has been a topic that's sort of come out of this whole series, really.
I think you're definitely right. Harry Kane is definitely a leader by example. But what we are seeing as he matures, I think he's just turned 27 this summer. You are seeing him become more vocal. Now, is that Jose Mourinho's influence? Well, we won't know, because we didn't see him in the dressing room under Poch, because that footage isn't available. But he's definitely come on leaps and bounds in terms of people looking up to him, in terms of his captaincy on the pitch, even if he's not, because he's not the captain. We have to remember that. Hugo Lloris is the captain, but people look up to Kane, the way he trains, his professionalism, captain of England, and the way he plays. He never complains. He's never, ever in the news for any reason other than football. He's got an MBE. He is the consummate professional. With Harry Kane, you could almost see what you were alluding to there, when he was called into Mourinho's office, and Mourinho says to him the night before on the training ground, he goes, Harry, I want to see you in my office. He says, but hang on, have you got kids? And he goes, yeah, I have 2 kids. He goes, go and be with your kids. I'll see you first thing in the morning. That bit of man management of, family times first. And he calls him in, and you can see it on Kane's face when he's saying, look, basically, you're world class, but I need to make you more than that. I need to make you a leader. I need to make you win something here. And that, for me, was really pleasing to see, the amount he talked about winning. And then he had similar conversations with Dyer, a very different conversation with Dele Alli, then a different conversation with Danny Rose. But you could see the way he was pushing home about winning. And if I was a player, the same as you, Andrew, if you're a player and you go in, you've never won anything, and you've got Mourinho there, you think, I'm going to win something now. And that's what I believe a lot of our players feel this year.
Yeah, he'll always be under the microscope, Mourinho, in terms of his tactics and how his teams play and set up. But what you can't ignore is the guy's CV, and he has a habit of winning things wherever he goes, wherever that trophy might be. I mean, talking about Harry Kane as well, you look down the years and the history of the clubs that Mourinho's managed at, and he's always had that pivotal number 9 striker that I can think of. Drogba at Chelsea, Milito when he was at Inter. His sides are usually, Man United, it was a bit of a messy period, but Lukaku was sort of that one that he tried to have that give that mantle to. But I think, Harry's definitely growing in stature under Jose. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, that's why when he first went to Man United, he went and got Ibrahimovic. Even if he was, what is he now, 107 Ibrahimovic or something? He's just been going around forever, hasn't he? But, that is, talk about his style of football all we like. It's a very divisive conversation when people talk about his style of football. And there are Spurs fans still to this day that are, right, Jose out. His football's dreadful, Jose out. And then there's Spurs fans like me going, hang on, in our last 5 games, we've knocked in 7 goals, 5 goals, 6 goals. What was evident was last year, we when he joined, we went on a really good run. In his first 12 games, we went on this fantastic run where we were second in the form table behind Liverpool. And it was only when Harry Kane picked up the injury that all of a sudden we didn't have a focus. And you could see that from having a lack of a backup striker or another striker in the squad, that Jose Mourinho's tactics fell down. Now you could see this summer the aim was to get another striker. So at the moment, Harry Kane, and let's remember, Harry Kane's role has changed, Andrew, at Spurs. He used to be that out-and-out goal scorer.
Yeah, he's dropping in
now,
as a
yeah. Now, if you look at him, he's turning into like this world-class playmaker who's dropping deep and almost giving the limelight to Heung-min Son. And add to that at the moment he's feeding Son. Add to that from in 10 days' time when Gareth Bale gets back to playing against West Ham, I think you're going to see more of what Liverpool are doing, where they've got three in midfield, none of which are playmakers. Then they have Firmino, who's not really a goal scorer, but threading Mane and Salah. And I think you're going to see that with Kane. I think you're going to see him get less goals. I think he's still knocking 20 a season, but I think he's going to get less goals. And a lot of it is going to be Kane with the assist for Bale, for Son, for Lamela, Bergwijn, Moura, whoever plays in those attacking two positions. So I think tactically he's fantastic, Mourinho. And I think Spurs fans kind of need to get their heads out their backsides a little bit. Stop worrying about this Spurs way where we play this lovely tick-a-tack of football that has brought us 0 trophies for 12 years. So I think we're very lucky to have him.
No, I mean, great minds think alike, Sava. I mean, it's absolutely bang on what you said about the Firmino and Kane comparison. Spot on. And I think that when Bale returns, whenever he's back fit again, is that, if you're someone like Lamela or maybe a Bergwijn, all of a sudden, there's not a selection headache because you've got to think that it's going to be Bale, Son, Kane. But, the way they're playing in the last 2 or 3 weeks without Bale, you could argue it's not a complete shoo-in that he's going to walk straight back into that side, even though that sounds ridiculous because it's Gareth Bale. But
Yeah, but I mean, listen, when we first signed Bale, I think it would have been like, come on, let's just get him out, one leg strapped up, 10% fit, get him out on the pitch. I think lots of other players have raised their game now. And the key thing for me is to see, have they raised their game in the interim? Is it short-termism? Or have they raised their game now because they know that you can't get away with these bad spells of form like they did under Poch? And the problem was, under Poch, everyone kind of who was in his first 11 was guaranteed a game. It didn't matter how bad they played. It didn't matter if they had 3 or 4 months of not playing well. They played every week. You've seen Mourinho's coming straight away, and someone like Dele Alli, who, again, splits opinions, but straight away he's calling him out on it. So, no, hang on. Top clubs don't have players that laze around and do a bit of magic every 5 or 6 games. Just kind of step up, and we've seen it with Ndombele as well. So I think anybody that doubts this man, his tactics, his ability, his man-to-man management is very naive, in my opinion, my humble opinion.
Well, to use your podcast name, I don't think you're going to be Spursy under Jose, that's for sure.
I hope not. I mean, look, I put my neck on the line and said, look, I think this year we will win something. Look, I'm not saying we're going to win a league. I'd love to win a league, but I don't think we're there yet. But I just feel with Jose that if we get to those semis and to the finals, that's your manager for a one-off game. That's your manager that goes, right, okay, guys, we will get over the line, whatever it takes. And I just felt with Poch, he never adapted our tactics to who we were playing. It was, we're going to play this nice football, but what we see with Mourinho now, he'll go to a 3-4-3. He'll go to 5 at the back. He'll go to 3 up front or 2 up. He changes the tactics, and I think that will see us through. Fingers crossed.
Well, fingers crossed you don't, but we'll end it there.
yeah, absolutely. But look, you guys got over the line last year, and sometimes you just have to get over the line once to kickstart something. And already you can see in your players, and I hate saying nice things about Arsenal, but the difference to you guys now to under Unai Emery is vast. And you know, that's just what a manager can do. And yes, Arteta's at the complete other end of the spectrum to Mourinho in terms of experience, but they're playing for him. You know, I'm not saying you're the best team in the world, but already you can see you look organised. You defensively, you look like a cohesive unit again. Everyone's putting in a shift, and like Mourinho, he's not afraid to drop big names like Mesut Ozil we've seen. You know, Guendouzi, who was a shoo-in under Emery. You know, he's now, where is he? He's been shipped off to Germany, is it?
Yeah, Hertha Berlin, yeah.
Hertha Berlin. You know, so I think this is what was needed for both our clubs, in honesty. I think it was much needed.
Yeah. We'll have to get you back on for a North London derby special, Sava.
Yes. I don't know, when is that? That's soon, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is, actually. Not too long away. I think it might be end of November, early December, maybe.
It's just such a shame that fans can't get in to see it. I think it would be, especially with the return of Bale, I think it would be explosive.
No, looking forward to it. Thanks so much for your time, Sava. It's been fantastic.
No worries, mate. No worries. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
No worries. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Thank you for listening to this episode, and a special thanks this week to Holly Agambar, who became our 100th YouTube subscriber. You can subscribe to our channel at HTO Football and follow us over on Twitter to find out all of our latest competitions and news at HTO. All the best, and see you next time, guys.